Welcome to New England Soccer Journal's The Goal Podcast, the podcast for serious soccer players and their supporters to help further their development and navigate their way throughout their soccer careers. And now, here's your host, Matt Langone.
Welcome into another episode of New England Soccer Journal's The Goal Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Langone. Today I'm joined via Zoom by our own Matt Doherty, New England Soccer Journal staff writer. Matt is playing hurt, so he's not in the studio today. He's been battling a little bit of a virus, as we are all prone to do in the wintertime here in the January, February months. So Matt is battling it out in his living room or whatnot. But Matt, good to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm in the bedroom. I'm at my desk, but it's been a rough week battling the flu. No COVID, which is good.
Good.
I'm turning the corner though, and happy to be on today.
Good. Well, hey, you're on your home turf.
Bored. That's the biggest thing.
Well, you're in your home turf. You're in the friendly confines of the home. So I know we'll get the best performance out of you today because everyone plays better at home. So I expect a great performance from you. But what we're going to discuss today is kind of Matt was at, if you've been paying attention to our coverage on soccerjournal.com, in the early part of January, Matt was down at the ECNL. Whenever I say those four letters, it comes out too fast. And ECNL Florida Winter Showcase, the Girls Winter Showcase. All of the New England clubs were there. Matt was down there taking in all the action, providing standout lists on our website, providing great coverage. And it serves as kind of not only seeing that showcase and covering those teams and seeing everybody in action, it serves as kind of a springboard into the spring, which we're still, a couple months away really, but action will be ramping up again in late February, early March. So Matt, you were down there, you saw some of these teams. There's still, there's a lot of preparation and work they're going to do over the next few weeks to get ready for the regular season when it resumes. But what were some takeaways for you, generally speaking, down in Florida?
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed my time down there. I felt like the tournament was very well run, and I liked the girls side of it too. I just thought the matches were competitive. The players, everything was just very easy to navigate with rosters and a lot of great fan support from families. And I mean, my biggest takeaway was the number of college coaches there. I obviously did MLS Next Fest and there was a ton there, but at some of these girls games, especially the New England clubs, like the Stars Blue and South Shore Select, they had hundreds of coaches at each individual game on the sidelines, and just all the high Division I schools that you can think of from across the country, which I thought was a really intimate atmosphere. There was the first game I went to was the Stars 08 Blue game, and they were playing, I think it was Solar FC, who's also one of the top ECNL teams in the country. And I show up and there's so many chairs. I couldn't even find a place to sit. I didn't have a chair either, which is next time I need to bring a chair.
Lessons learned.
Yeah, I was, grass all over my pants. But besides the point, there was just so many coaches there, and I felt like it was just a really cool environment to be a part of, to see how far the New England soccer impact is across the country, and that you have the best programs in the country coming to watch these New England teams. So, I got a taste of that at MLS Next Fest, but just to see it again at this showcase was probably my biggest takeaway, and it was really cool to watch.
Yeah, I've done a few of these ECNL showcases on the boys' side and the girls' side a lot of times down in Florida. And I'm not going to lie, it's nice to have that Florida weather in January and get away from it. Although it's funny, you said, I remember talking to you when you were down there, the first day you were down there was 55 and cloudy, right? Or something like that?
The first day I was cold. I left, I couldn't make it through the last hour that I was supposed to be there.
Needed some hot tea or something. You got to get out of there. So maybe the weather wasn't. Although I know you said, but then I talked to you 2 days later and you were sunburned. Your face was bright red. So it went from 55 and cloudy to 75 and sunny real quick. And that's one of the beauty things of going to those showcases in the wintertime, getting that nice weather. But you're right. I think the thing that always strikes me at those things is the sheer volume of college coaches that are there. And it's funny, and you know who they are because they're all wearing their gear. They're all wearing their school. And some of them, sometimes it's an assistant coach, sometimes it's another rep from the school, but like a lot of times it is the head coach. So you see a lot of the real head coaches down there. And that's funny. When you mention FC Stars and South Shore Select, though, that kind of highlights the fact that those two clubs are firmly on that national radar. And I know FC Stars has a bunch of players already committed in the class of 26. We know their class of 2025 is well established, and many of those players, most of those players are all set. But that class of 2026, I know they have a bunch of players committed as well. Is that what struck you too, as well as just how firmly placed on the national radar those clubs are?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think you kind of briefed me on that before, so I knew it, but just to see it in person, I mean, FC Stars Blue, like the OA team already has a North Carolina commit, which, is arguably the best women's program in the country. So, it. And then they send these players to these type of schools in the past. So it's kind of, you know, the Stars and Select, obviously the top two, have like created that pipeline where they're pumping out the ACC and Big Ten and those type of players to those type of programs. So I kind of knew what to expect, but just to see it in person is pretty cool. And it just makes the games have that much more stake. And obviously, like, you're not playing for a trophy, but you know, trying to impress those coaches and you know, you're also playing good teams. And I think that just that whole environment was something that I hadn't experienced yet on the girls' side. So I think that was the highlight of the trip. And it made for some good matches for sure.
Now, I know we placed the focus down there on the U16 and U17 levels because, we know the U19s, a lot of those players have already finalized their college destinations. I mean, more to come for sure, but we were mainly focused on the U16 and U17 age groups. But, bigger picture than that, when you look at like the New England Conference in the ECNL, does seeing that showcase, watching those teams in action, does that give you reason to believe that you think the New England Conference is going to be highly competitive this spring? I mean, do you feel like across the board? I mean, I know some clubs, might be stronger in certain age groups, but across the board, do you feel like it's going to be a competitive battle?
Yeah, I thought all the teams were pretty good. Like Scorpions had a great showing at their OA team, played really well, and they got some really good players. I was impressed with them a lot. Obviously, like Stars, the Select seems to have made a good transition to ECNL. I know it's a long season, but they have the talent to compete with anyone, which I know and even like teams like Connecticut FC were pretty good and have some Division 1 players. So I think that's the thing on the girls' side is like all those teams have players that are going Division 1. It doesn't matter, like, if even if you are the top club in that New England conference, like, you have high end talent, and I think that creates um competitive matches, and anyone can beat anyone on any weekend. So I am excited. Obviously, this is my first go around on the girls club side, so I'm excited to see how it all unfolds throughout the season. And I know, like, when we get into the summer too, right, have those national tournaments. Um, the Stars had a good run last year in it, so I'm excited to see how that all plays out too. And I think this showcase was more like an appetizer for the season for them, because some of the clubs too, like from outside New England, they've already played together throughout the fall. So they have that chemistry and experience. Whereas a lot of the New England clubs, that was their first real action. They play in the NEPSAC or MIA or whatever. So they don't have those game reps in the fall yet. So this was kind of the first go around. So I think it does create some anticipation for me for the rest of the season. And kind of dip my toes in the water for the first time in the ECNL circuit.
For sure. And you're racking up those frequent flyer miles. You were out in California for the MLS Next Fest in December, and then Florida in January. I mean, man, that's it's not bad.
Yeah.
not a bad gig.
I know. Where am I going in February? Let's
We'll
go.
see. Who knows? Could be anywhere. How would you say the vibe at the ECNL Girls Showcase compared to the MLS Next? I mean, do you find that they're on both ends? They're both pretty similar vibes, pretty similar in the way they're run, and obviously they're showcase events, so they're not counted towards regular season standings or anything like that. They're literally big for recruiting purposes and just exposure and kind of measuring stick matches against programs from across the country. But how did you feel like the two showcases compared to each other in terms of, what the level of competition was and what the overall, scope of what it was?
I think MLS Next Fest was way bigger. Like they had many more teams and
Mm,
more age groups. So I think it was just a wider experience, if that makes any sense. Like there
sure.
was just so many games and teams and players, and you had like U15 all the way to U19, whereas at the ECNL it was only 3 age groups, and I also didn't really focus on the U19 age group, so it was a much more condensed tournament in my mind. I felt like MLS Next Fest was a little more laid back too. Maybe it was like that Cali desert mountain vibe that just made it a
Well, you were
little.
near Joshua Tree. Maybe there was just all the hippie vibes coming off the Joshua Tree.
Yeah, it
We're
was like
spilling into
radiating
it.
throughout
Yeah.
the fields, but I don't know, it just seemed a little bit like slower paced where I felt
Yeah.
like the girls showcase was a little bit more um just a higher notch on the intensity dial. I think also, you know, we've talked about this, but like with the men's on the boys side, the recruiting is kind of a little bit later in the process, whereas a lot of the girls like in the class of 2026, like they're starting to commit after this event. Like there was a couple that came in recently. So I think maybe it's a more important showcase for the girls than on the boys side. But in terms of the atmosphere and the vibe, like it was similar in terms of tons of coaches and a lot of like recruiting services, and a lot of good fan support like that. Those are all the same. And I think like going to MLS Next Fest also helped me at the girls showcase kind of like, okay, what am I looking for here? How does the tournament work? Like, where do I sit? How do I get rosters? Like, just that helped a lot. How do you navigate the schedule? That's the hardest part is navigating, like on my end, is navigating the schedule because you're trying to see all these teams and there's overlapping and how do I get to this field at this time? And oh, I can do 30 minutes here, then 30 minutes there, but it's a 10-minute walk. So all those things, I think it helped. But I think the overarching thing is like these showcases are really good for the players, but also for us and for our content, like having everyone at a central location a couple of times a year. You know, it's a really like important thing that both leagues put on.
Right. And as we foreshadow and kind of forecast the spring regular season when it resumes, which will be, like I said, late February, early March, who are some teams in the ECNL girls platform for New England that you feel like could make some noise this spring? And I'm talking like particular age group from a certain club, because I know, like we said, not every age group at every club is the same. I mean, there's stronger units, there's units that are still developing. But who are some individual teams from some of these clubs that you think made noise in Florida and could make some noise in the spring?
I think the Scorpions or the OA team was really good. Like they were good, and I think they added some new pieces, is what I gathered. You know, obviously you know like the Stars and Select are going to be really good, but the Scorpions is kind of that third team in the upper echelon. They have some really dynamic forwards and who can score, and you can check all it out in our standout piece, but you know, they played really well in Florida. And obviously, like, you know, not everyone's playing the same exact teams. But they just seemed a dynamic unit. Like they can score goals, they're fast and strong and physical and kind of play this relentless style where they're really pressuring the ball and creating turnovers. So I want to see them, like, they were the biggest team. The team leaving the choke is like, okay, I want to see them play against the Stars and play against Select and see how they um, match up with them. And so they were the team that I was impressed with the most leaving Florida.
Yeah, I mean, in reading your coverage,
The
that's
08 team, the 08 team.
right, right. In reading your coverage, that obviously, it's like, that's a great point. That the way these showcases are structured, teams kind of play other clubs from across the country that are similar level of competition. So it's hard. It's hard to gauge who's playing. It's hard to gauge win losses because it's hard to gauge who's playing what teams. We understand that about these showcases. Like, a lot of it is maybe based on how you did last year, and you're going to probably play some higher rated teams from across the country. So, but you are playing like-minded competition. So it's for what you are as a club. It's even competition. So for Scorpions to put up those kind of results is quite impressive, and they have to be thinking.
Even the results too. It's just like you watch them play and you're like, okay, this team's good. Like,
Right,
they have
eyeball
talent.
test, right? Yeah, eyeball test. I mean, what you see, because which is why it's great to have boots on the ground at these things, because you don't have to be reliant on what the win losses said. You're actually seeing the style of play that these teams play. Where they're strong, where they may lack, what areas they might need a little improvement as the season goes on. Outside of them, I know Stars Blue and White, both tremendous. I know Stars Blue had a bunch of standout players that you wrote about in coverage on soccerjournal.com. How did you feel Stars Blue performed there?
They played well. I mean, they played a brutal schedule. Like, they played, I think all three teams are ranked inside the top 5 for the ECNL. They were missing some players as well, but I think they have a lot of talent on their team, like the Blosser twins and Brenna Gagorski, like, they're absolute studs. And so they competed really hard. They played hard. I think the schedule, like, they played some teams who had been playing together throughout the fall as well. So, like, they're kind of a step ahead. And I think it was more like the process was good more than the results, like kind of the eyeball tests. Like, it's not like they were, like, I thought they were competitive and played hard and obviously had this individual talent that it's like, okay, well, if they put all these pieces together, like, they'll be right there at the end again. Um, so they were good, and obviously, like, South Shore Select was really good and um fun to watch as well. They play just an exciting brand of soccer and always attacking and putting a ton of pressure on the defense. I feel like their forward group can just, like, get shots off from anywhere in the attacking third. So they were really fun to watch as well. So I liked all of them. Like, even Connecticut FC played well, and the Stars White team was competitive too. So yeah, I think it was a good start to the season for a lot of the clubs.
That really speaks to the level of play that Stars is capable of. The fact that they have two sides,
Yeah.
blue and white, that they can send to these showcases, and both can be highly competitive, and both are loaded up with D1 commits and good D2, D3 commits. I mean, it's pretty impressive what Stars is able to accomplish. And you mentioned South Shore Select, obviously the newest ECNL member, leaving Girls Academy after last season. So this will be an interesting spring for Select. Just how you said they look good in the showcase, and just how they continue to evolve through this new platform. Do you feel like they're excited to get going and get further into the ECNL schedule?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. They enjoyed the first taste of it, definitely. I mean, they
First
went
foray, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, they went 3-0 too, so they played well. And I think they'll obviously match up against maybe some tougher teams throughout the spring. But I mean, that team has that, like, they have a lot of high division 1 players. Like, they're a younger team too. They have a lot of, like, the OA team has a lot of class of 2027 players, so they're also playing up. Even their best players are 27. So, I but I expect the transition, it seemed, based on those, I think I saw them play twice. Like it seems like they'll be in a good spot this spring and be able to compete with all the teams in the New England League.
Any great meals down there while you're down in Florida? Any good restaurants?
Yeah, I got some one day, Saturday, the cold day.
Yeah.
I went to. I'm a big Belly fan, the food app, so that helps me.
Oh yeah.
Places, and they had this good fish place that was like 10 minutes from where I was staying. So I got some blackened mahi mahi.
There you go. Nice.
And
Nice.
it was really good, and
Yeah.
it was by the water too. And yeah, I wish it was a little warmer, but that was definitely the best meal. Trying to think what else I had.
I'm glad to hear you weren't filling up on Domino's and Burger King all week.
No,
So
I gotta eat the local cuisine.
Yeah. Yes. Soak in the atmosphere.
I got like a seafood pasta dish Sunday night by Sarasota, which was
Nice.
it was average. I was watching the Eagles Packers game at the bar.
Oh yeah.
I got around. It was nice. It was nice. Sunday, Monday were really nice, like
Good.
weather-wise, so that helps a lot too.
Good. If I recall, it was cold and not great here. So that was it was freezing here. So
Yeah.
I'm envious. But that's good stuff, Matt. And obviously, everyone can check out Matt's coverage from down in Florida on soccerjournal.com, and there'll be a lot more coming this spring. And that's boys club, girls club. We'll be all over it this spring with myself and Matt Doherty on the coverage.
Are you serious about playing your sport in college? Do you need a flexible education that allows you to maintain your practice and competition schedules while also preparing you to succeed at the next level? You should check out the University of Nebraska High School. UNHS is accredited and offers more than 100 online courses, including NCAA-approved courses to protect your academic eligibility. Students could earn a UNHS diploma or take a single course for transfer credit. Courses are college prep, self-paced, and available 24/7, 365. Enroll anytime and take up to a year to complete a course. Visit highschool.nebraska.edu today.
Now we're going to go to our favorite time of the podcast, which is extra time, where producer David Yaz hits us with 3 random questions about the world of soccer, and we're going to see if we can handle them. So let's turn this over to David.
It's the end of regulation, so let's move to extra time.
Yes, welcome back to the pomp, the pageantry, the tradition, the fine, time-honored tradition of extra time, everyone's favorite segment. I do have 3 questions for both Matts, and they will both weigh in, and then I will decide who is right and who is wrong, even though there are no right and wrong answers. All right, so what we have here are 3 quotes from soccer legends. What I want you to do is tell me what you think of the quote. I want you to give it a rating on a scale from 0 to 10.
I like
10 being the best. You can use decimals if you want to.
Ooh.
Go crazy. And the first one, we'll start with you, Matt Langone, in studio here. Comes from Liverpool's Bill Shankly. And Shankly said the following: "The trouble with referees is that they know the rules, but they do not know the game."
Ooh.
Bill Shankly said that. Matt, give us a score and tell us why.
Well, here's the deal. So I actually just recently became a basketball referee.
Oh.
A licensed, a patch basketball referee in Massachusetts. So I am now seeing sports in a different lens.
Let me guess. It's a lot harder than you thought it was going to be.
Exactly.
That happened to me. Yeah.
It's exactly what, and now I'm watching basketball games and I'm like watching the referees more than I'm watching the action. And before I used to be like the coach or the guy on the side of the back, that's a travel. Come on. Like now I'm like, nah, guy's doing probably the best he can. That ref's doing the best they can. So I'm seeing it differently. I still like the quote though. It's still a good quote because it's sharp and it's kind of a jab at the refs. But I'm going to grade it a little lower. Scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give it, it's an above average quote. I'm going to give it a 6.5. I like the quote.
6.5.
Yeah, I like the quote, but as a referee now, I'm seeing things in a different lens.
Okay. Matt D., your score, your thoughts.
8.2.
Woo.
No,
High.
he went high. Tell us
Well,
why.
it's true. Refs try to like take over the game. They try to make it about themselves. They think they know everything. They like he said, they know the rules. They don't know the game, and just swallow your whistle and only blow it. Only make a call when you absolutely need to. Stop making yourself the center of attention.
I see a little pushback on that. I do agree that there are a lot of refs who do that. See Ed Hockley, NFL referee, Ed Hockley's son. These guys who just want to be the show. I do agree with that, but generalizing all refs is probably tough. That's probably why I scored it down. But it is a good quote. It's a solid quote.
It's hard. Yeah.
I don't like any ref except Matt Langone. Either.
Exactly. I was going to say, you better like this ref.
No, I used to get on the refs in the rec league basketball, which is pathetic when I was coaching my son. And then I filled in for a referee once and actually reffed alongside the refs that I had tormented for the whole season.
Yep.
And really did have new respect for him. It's like the first guy goes out, he drives for a basket. There's some contact.
Oh, man.
And you just look at it and you go, I don't know. That might be a foul. I'm not sure. But you both seem to agree that, is it okay for a ref to factor into his decision making the point, with the score of the game, the situation of the game, how much time is left in the game?
That's interesting because that's something you wrestle with. I do think that, situation matters. Tie game, late. I mean, I guess I'm talking about this through a basketball point of view, or it can also be a soccer point of view. Tight game, late, final minutes. I feel like you are letting them play a little bit more. You should, just because at that point, spectators are there to watch the players decide it, and you don't really want to get in the way. So I do think that situation definitely matters. I think you're probably taught, I bet, as a referee in all sports to not be like that, to call it as
no matter what, right?
Call it as it should be, make the right call. But I do think the human element is you don't want to get in the way of a situation if you don't need to.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree, but it's like when you're watching a basketball game, if it's a tight game, it comes down to the end, and then the game is decided on like a touch foul and 2 free throws.
Right.
Like
nobody wants
flooring.
That.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Soccer is better though because there's not as many whistles that are going to impact the game.
Yeah.
True.
And I have a lot of, also, honestly, too, soccer referees running up and down that field, covering that ground, and kind of having it all fall. I mean, I get a lot of respect for a soccer referee. I mean, you got to be, number one, your conditioning has to be really good, and then you have to see you have to see everything.
Matt T, did you have more on that? You good?
Ready for the next one?
Okay, he's drunk on Sudafed and other things.
All hopped up.
Yeah. All right. Second quote comes to us from French soccer great Laurent Blanc. Laurent Blanc.
Sounds better.
He said the following: "Football is the only sport where you can have a 3-week injury and still play the whole 90 minutes." Football is the only sport where you can have a 3-week injury and still play the whole 90 minutes. Matt D, why don't you start with that one? What's that?
If I'm like a 2.6, I feel like soccer players are
easy.
A little owie, and they're out for they're on the ground, rolling around in pain. They're subbing out. They're not playing, like a hamstring. You're out for a week. I disagree with that quote.
Interesting.
That's a low score for me because I feel like, I mean, and I'm not blaming soccer players because it's hard to run when you have, a hamstring strain or a knee problem or calf, whatever, you name the injury. Like, it's tough to run for 90 minutes when you have that type of injury. But I think soccer players don't play through pain a ton.
You heard it here first. Matt Doherty says soccer players are wusses.
Some do, but some don't.
And down goes our viewership. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I will go the other way to defend the toughness of soccer players. I mean, I won't go. I won't give the quote too much credit. I'm going to call it a 5 because it's right in the middle. I mean, soccer players contradict themselves a lot. And I played soccer. I mean, you want to be known as tough, but you also want to draw fouls. I mean, they hurt their cause with the flopping, but there are a lot of tough soccer players. I mean, I've seen some.
Or
There's a ton of contact. I mean, guys do play through things. I mean, a lot of times a guy will get hurt. The team will pull him off the field, play a man down for a little while. The guy will convince his coach to go back in, and he's back in. I mean, they do play hurt. But, you look at like an NFL legend like Ronnie Lott's fingers, and they're all like, bending 50,000 different ways. So it's like, I mean, to say that it's the only sport where, you're playing through injury, I guess, is a bit hyperbole.
You downplayed Ronnie Lott. He famously elected to have the tip of his finger amputated in order for him to play that.
Imagine
Sunday.
that. I mean,
it's such a violent and physical sport that,
right.
I mean, that's a whole nother.
No, it is. But I think I do.
3-week injury, you play through it. Like,
yeah, I don't. That's laying it on a little thick. But soccer players absolutely are tougher than they're given credit for. It's the flopping that hurts their cause and their kind of the way people view them. But it's that quote's a little heavy for me.
Okay. Final quote comes to us from Dutch soccer legend Johan Cruyff, who said the following: "When you play a match, it's statistically proven that players actually have the ball 3 minutes on average. The important thing is what you do during those 87 minutes when you do not have the ball." Matt Langone, your score, your thoughts?
Tremendous quote. I mean, that's pretty close to a 10. I'm not going to give it a 10, but I'll say a 9.7. I mean,
okay,
because that is true. I mean, you think about a soccer match. There's 22 players on the field in a giant field. I mean, you're not going to possess the ball. The greatest players in the world aren't going to possess the ball for the majority of the game. I mean, they're going to have it. They're going to pass. They're going to have it for spurts. But what are you doing when you don't have the ball? Are you marking up? Are you talking? Are you communicating? Are you making sure everything's in order? Like, are you helping to put your team in the best position to succeed? I mean, that is so true in soccer, because, in other sports, it's kind of like, it's like American football in that regard, that, like, you may not have the ball. A receiver might, look at the Chiefs-Bills game. Travis Kelce, I think, caught 2 balls. I still think he had an impact because he was blocking, he was a decoy, he was attracting defenders. I mean, there's so much you can do without the ball in soccer, just the same. So I think that's a great quote.
Great thoughts, Matt D.
I agree. I think it's a really great quote. It's like a 9.5, I would say. I like it. I think it's a good way to think about the game too. Like, next time you're watching it, I might do that. Like, okay, this player, what is he doing for those other 87 minutes?
Yeah.
Like, I think it's a cool way to look at the sport. And, you also have 11 players, so you're not going to get the ball. I think some players definitely have the ball more than 3 minutes, right? That's why I'm not giving it a 10 out of 10. But I think it's a nice analytical way to look at the sport too, and try to understand the game a little bit better, and especially like the good players, like, what are they doing when they don't have the ball, like Matt said? Are they, how are they trying to get open? What are they doing defensively? How are they working towards the net? All those type of things. So I think it's a really good quote. I like it a lot.
Yeah. I would draw a comparison to basketball in the sense that in today's NBA, sadly, you see a lot of players standing on the perimeter when they don't have the ball. They're just standing there, and that's the plan. And I don't like that plan. But the greatest players through history constantly moving without the ball,
right?
Slashing,
right,
getting open, setting picks, whatever they're doing.
I mean, the greatest shooter of all time playing right now, Steph Curry. Watch him without the ball. I mean, watch what he does when he doesn't have the ball. How many screens he's running off. How much he's curling. I mean, You're right, David. That's a great point. I mean, we make a lot of parallels with soccer and basketball on this show, because I think we're all kind of basketball fans too, and soccer. So, but that's a great one. I mean, you can compare sports, that quote too. If I'm a soccer coach, that's one early in the season in like training camp, with like a high school team or a club team or even a college team. I'm saying that quote on like day 1 of camp, because like that's one of those thought-provoking quotes to a player that's like, oh yeah, you know what? I don't have the ball. There's 90 minutes a game. I don't sound like I have the ball for 45 of those minutes. Like, what am I doing when I don't have the ball? What can I be doing? I think it's a great quote.
Yeah. And you don't want to be the guy who is just sitting there saying, why won't someone pass it to me? Right? You know, I mean, that
which I probably was when I was like 12.
Come on, I'm open.
Give me the ball.
Yeah. Just sitting there waving your hand.
Yeah.
All right, then. Well, tremendous job. Neither of the hosts flop on the Goal podcast. And in fact, one of our hosts is playing her today. So let's give him a little credit for that.
Yeah.
Well done. And back to you, Matt, to wrap things up.
Great job, David. Great theme there. I like those quotes. That was good stuff. And Matt, appreciate the time. Hopefully this virus subsides. You keep pounding that Sudafed or whatever, drinking that herbal tea, whatever you got to do to fight the good fight.
Thank you. It was nice to come on, though.
Absolutely. Well, we'll have you in studio for the next one, of course. But thanks again to Matt Doherty for joining the podcast. I'm Matt Langone. Thanks for listening. New England Soccer Journal's The Goal Podcast is produced by David Yaz and is a Siemens Media production.
You've been listening to New England Soccer Journal's The Goal Podcast. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to our podcast. Or visit anysoccerjournal.com/podcast. Siemens Media. Inspiring, informative, insightful.